My name is Fred, and I'm 27 years old. For as long as I can remember, basketball has been the one thing I loved more than anything else in the world. The problem? I was never good at it. Not even close. Some people are naturally talented. The kind of people who touch a basketball once and suddenly they're running across the court like they were born for it. I wasn't one of those people. When I was a kid, I used to stand near the neighborhood court every evening after school, watching the older boys play. The sound of the ball hitting the ground, the squeak of shoes sliding across the pavement, the cheers when someone made a perfect shot. It felt magical to me. I wanted to be part of it more than anything. Sometimes they would let me join, but I was always the last person they picked. Actually, most of the time I wasn't picked at all. "Come on, don't choose Fred," one of them would say. "He'll just slow the team down." And they weren't wrong. I missed shots. I tripped over my own feet. I passed the ball at the worst possible moments. Every mistake made the laughter louder. At first I thought if I just practiced more, things would get better. So I did. Every afternoon I stayed at the court long after everyone else left. Dribbling, shooting, running drills I saw on TV. But improvement came painfully slow. By the time I reached high school, most players had already developed real skills. They moved confidently across the court, making difficult shots look easy. Meanwhile, I was still struggling with the basics. I tried joining the school team once. The coach watched me for less than 5 minutes. Then he shook his head. "Sorry, kid," he said. "Basketball probably isn't your thing." Those words stuck with me for years. After that, people stopped expecting anything from me. Friends told me to focus on something else. Family members suggested different hobbies. But they didn't understand something. Basketball wasn't just a hobby for me. It was a dream. Even if I was terrible at it. Even if everyone else thought it was pointless. So I kept playing. Or at least, trying to. Near my apartment there was an old, cracked basketball court behind a small park. Most people ignored it because the pavement was uneven and one of the hoops leaned slightly to the side. But to me, it was perfect. Every night after work, I went there alone. Streetlights flickered above the court, casting long shadows across the cracked concrete. The sound of the ball echoing through the empty park became something I looked forward to every day. Dribble. Shoot. Miss. Dribble. Shoot. Miss again. Sometimes I made a shot. Those moments felt like tiny victories, even if no one else was there to see them. But there was one person who might have noticed. My neighbor, William. William lived in the apartment building across the street from mine. I didn't know him personally, but almost everyone in the area knew who he was. He was the captain of the best local basketball team in the city. The kind of team people talked about with excitement whenever they played in tournaments. And William himself? He was the kind of player people admired. Tall, confident, skilled. Everything I wasn't. Sometimes early in the morning, when I was leaving for work, I would see him stepping out of his building. A gym bag slung over his shoulder. Always focused. Always moving with quiet confidence. Even from a distance, you could tell he belonged on the court. Meanwhile, I was just the guy practicing alone at night, hoping nobody noticed how bad I actually was. Still, I couldn't help watching him sometimes. Not in a weird way. More like the way someone watches a professional athlete and wonders what it would feel like to be that good. To move with that much certainty. To actually belong in the game. A few times I imagined what it would be like if someone like William trained me. If someone that skilled showed me what I was doing wrong. But that thought always felt ridiculous. Why would the captain of the city's best team waste his time on someone like me? Someone who couldn't even make a simple jump shot half the time. Still, the idea stayed in my mind. Night after night, as I practiced under the dim streetlights, that question kept coming back. What if I just asked? What if I took the risk? Maybe he would laugh. Maybe he would ignore me completely. But at least I would know I tried. One evening, after missing what felt like my 100th shot in a row, I stood there staring at the hoop. My chest rising and falling as I caught my breath. And suddenly, a thought crossed my mind that refused to disappear. Maybe it was crazy. Maybe it was the dumbest idea I'd ever had. But at that moment, I made a decision. I was going to ask him. I was going to walk up to the captain of the best basketball team in the city and ask him to give the worst player he'd probably ever seen a chance. The next morning, I almost backed out. Actually, I nearly convinced myself it was a terrible idea about 10 different times before I even left my apartment. What was I thinking? William was the captain of the best basketball team in the city. People admired him. Some even treated him like a local celebrity. And me? I was just the guy who practiced alone at a broken court and still couldn't make consistent shots. Still, I had already made the decision the night before. If I didn't try now, I knew I would regret it forever. So that morning, I waited outside my building earlier than usual. The street was quiet. The air still carried the cool feeling of early morning. A few cars passed by, but the neighborhood hadn't fully woken up yet. My hands felt slightly sweaty. I kept looking across the street toward William's building. What if he laughs at me? What if he thinks I'm completely ridiculous? The thought made my stomach twist. But then the front door of his building opened. And there he was. William stepped outside, just like he did every morning. A black gym bag hung over his shoulder, and he wore a sleeveless training shirt with dark athletic shorts. Even walking down the sidewalk, he carried himself with the relaxed confidence of someone who knew exactly who he was. Tall, strong, focused. Everything about him felt calm, but powerful at the same time. For a moment I almost forgot why I was standing there. Then he noticed me. His eyes shifted in my direction, and he slowed his steps slightly. I swallowed. Too late to turn back now. I walked toward him. "Hey, William," I said, trying not to sound too nervous. He stopped walking and looked at me carefully. Up close, his presence felt even stronger somehow. His eyes were sharp and observant, like he was studying everything about the person standing in front of him. "Yes," he said calmly. His voice was deeper than I expected. For a second my mind went completely blank. Then I forced the words out. I wanted to ask you something." William adjusted the strap of his gym bag on his shoulder but didn't interrupt. He just watched me, waiting. I rubbed the back of my neck awkwardly. "I know this might sound weird," I said, "but I was wondering if I could join your team." For a moment there was complete silence. William blinked once. Then he suddenly let out a quiet laugh. Not a cruel laugh, but definitely surprised. "You want to join my team?" he repeated. I felt my face getting warm. "Yeah," I admitted. William tilted his head slightly as he looked at me. "I've seen you playing at the park sometimes," he said. That sentence immediately made my stomach drop. Great. So he had seen me miss shots. Probably a lot of them. He continued speaking calmly. "You practice almost every night," he said. I nodded slowly. "Yeah." William crossed his arms slightly, still observing me. Then he said something that made me feel both embarrassed and strangely relieved at the same time. "You're not very good." I sighed. "Yeah, I know." But instead of dismissing me, William kept studying me. His eyes moved across my face like he was trying to understand something deeper. Then he spoke again. "But you're stubborn." I frowned slightly. "What?" He shrugged. "You keep showing up," he said, "even when no one is watching." I didn't know what to say to that. William's expression stayed calm, but there was something thoughtful behind his eyes now. "That's rare," he continued. The words surprised me. Most people focused on how bad I was at basketball, but William seemed to notice something else. I shifted slightly under his gaze. For some reason, the way he was looking at me made me feel aware, like he was seeing more than I expected him to see. It made me a little nervous. "So, does that mean I can try out?" I asked cautiously. William chuckled softly again. "You want to play with one of the top teams in the city," he said. "Yeah. And you can barely handle a basic jump shot." I sighed again. Also true. For a moment he just looked at me. Quiet. Focused. Then he stepped a little closer. Not aggressively. just enough that I could clearly feel his presence. "You're honest," he said. I shrugged awkwardly. "No point lying about something you can easily see." That made him smile slightly, but it wasn't a mocking smile. It looked more like he was amused. Then his expression became thoughtful again. "You really want this?" he asked. "Yes," I said immediately. The answer came out faster than I expected. William noticed. His eyes narrowed slightly with interest. "You want to become a real player?" he asked. "More than anything." For a few seconds, he didn't say anything. He just studied me. Carefully. So carefully that it almost made me uncomfortable. Then finally he spoke again. "Maybe," he said slowly. Hope sparked inside my chest. "Maybe." I repeated. William shifted the gym bag on his shoulder again. Then he looked directly into my eyes. "I might give you a chance." My heart skipped. But before I could say anything, he added something else. His voice calm, almost playful. "But first." He paused just long enough to build tension. "You'll have to work for it." For a few seconds after William said those words, I just stood there staring at him. "You'll have to work for it." I expected something like that. Of course I did. Nobody joins one of the best teams in the city without proving themselves first. Still, hearing it out loud made my stomach tighten. I shifted my weight awkwardly. "Work for it, how?" I asked. William looked at me for a moment, like he was deciding how much to say. Then he spoke calmly. "If you want me to make you a great player," he said slowly, "you'll help me first." I blinked. "Help you?" That wasn't the answer I expected. I thought he would say something about intense training. Or maybe he would tell me to run drills for hours. Or even clean the gym or carry equipment. But the way he said it sounded different. William nodded slightly. "Yes." "With what?" I asked. For a brief moment, a faint smile appeared on his face. Not a big one. Just enough to make it clear that he knew something I didn't. "That's not something I need to explain right now," he said. My eyebrows pulled together in confusion. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering directly, William looked down the street for a second and then back at me. "If you're serious about becoming a player," he continued, "come to the gym tomorrow morning." "What time?" I asked. 6. My eyes widened slightly. 6 in the morning. William nodded like it was the most normal thing in the world. "The court will be empty," he said. "Just you and me." There was something about the way he said that last part that made me pause. Just you and me. I wasn't sure why, but the words felt heavier than they should have. Still, I tried to focus on the opportunity in front of me. "So, you'll start training me?" I asked. William picked up his gym bag again. "Maybe." That answer wasn't very reassuring. "But first," he added calmly, "I want to see how serious you really are." He began walking again, passing me on the sidewalk. For a moment I just stood there, watching him move away. Then I quickly turned. "Wait." William stopped and looked back over his shoulder. "What exactly do you want me to help you with?" I asked. He studied me again for a second. That same quiet, observant look. Like he was measuring my reaction before he even spoke. Then he simply said, "You'll find out tomorrow." And with that, he walked away, leaving me standing there with about 100 questions in my head. The entire day at work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying the conversation over and over again. "If you want me to make you a great player, you'll help me first." What did that even mean? Was he testing my dedication? Was this some kind of strange training method? Or was it something completely different? I leaned back in my chair during my lunch break, staring at the ceiling. The truth was, I didn't know William well enough to guess. All I knew was what everyone else knew. He was one of the best basketball players in the city. A strong leader. A talented captain. But personally, he was a mystery. Quiet. Focused. Hard to read. And now, for some reason, he had chosen me. That thought alone made my brain spin. Why me? Out of all the people he could train, Why pick the guy who could barely play? Surely there were better players who wanted his help. Better athletes. Better prospects. But instead, he had looked straight at me and said I was stubborn. That I kept showing up even when nobody was watching. I rubbed my face slowly. Maybe he just feels sorry for you, I muttered to myself. That possibility stung a little. But honestly, I would still take the opportunity. Even if it started because of pity. Because deep down, one truth kept pushing through every doubt in my mind. I wanted this. More than anything. I had spent years watching basketball from the outside. Years imagining what it would feel like to actually belong on a team. To hear the sound of the crowd. To feel the energy of a real game. To make a shot that actually mattered. And now, for the first time in my life, someone like William was offering me a chance. Even if it came with strange conditions. Even if it felt confusing. Even if I had no idea what he expected from me. That night, I went to the park like I always did. The cracked court looked the same as ever. The tilted hoop. The dim streetlight. The empty silence. I dribbled the ball slowly across the pavement. Bounce. 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 Each sound echoed through the quiet park. My mind kept drifting back to William. The way he studied me. The way he spoke calmly, like he already knew something I didn't. And especially the way he said those words. Just you and me. I missed another shot. The ball bounced off the rim and rolled across the court. I jogged after it and picked it up, breathing heavily. Why me? I whispered to myself. The question hung in the air for a moment. But there was no answer. Only the quiet hum of the streetlight above me. Eventually I stopped practicing and sat down on the edge of the court. My arms rested on my knees as I stared at the hoop. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe tomorrow morning William would realize I was hopeless. Maybe I would embarrass myself even more than usual. The thought made my stomach tighten. But then another thought appeared. A stronger one. If I didn't go, I would never forgive myself. Because opportunities like this didn't come twice. William had given me a chance. Even if I didn't understand the rules yet. I slowly stood up, gripping the basketball in my hands. The decision settled firmly in my chest. Whatever his condition was, whatever he wanted from me, I was going to show up. Because if this was the price of chasing my dream, then I was ready to accept it. The next morning, my alarm rang at 5 a.m. For a few seconds, I just stared at the ceiling in the darkness of my room. My body wanted to go back to sleep. But my mind remembered immediately. The gym. 6 in the morning. William. I sat up quickly and rubbed my face. This was it. The strange condition he talked about. The beginning of whatever he had planned for me. Part of me still wondered if I was walking into some kind of humiliation. Maybe he would make me run until I collapsed. Maybe he would prove how bad I really was. Still, I got dressed and left my apartment before I could change my mind. The streets were quiet at that hour. The sky was still gray with the early morning light just beginning to appear. By the time I reached the gym building, my nerves were already kicking in. I pushed the door open slowly. The place was almost completely silent. No crowds. No players. No bouncing basketballs echoing through the court. Just the faint buzz of the overhead lights. And William. He was already there. Standing near the center of the court, casually dribbling a basketball. Bounce. 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 The sound echoed through the empty gym. He looked up when he noticed me walking in. "You're on time," he said. I nodded, slightly out of breath from the nervous energy running through my body. "Yeah." William glanced at the clock on the wall. "Good," he said simply. Then he tossed a basketball toward me. I barely caught it. "Let's start." I blinked. "That's it?" I asked. No speech. William raised an eyebrow. "You came here to play basketball, didn't you?" "Fair point." He gestured toward the court. "Warm up." And just like that, the training began. The first drill seemed simple. Dribbling. But William quickly proved that my version of simple and his version were completely different. "Lower," he said. I bent my knees more while dribbling. "Lower." I went lower. Control the ball. Don't chase it. I tried, but the ball kept slipping out of rhythm. Within seconds I lost control and it rolled across the floor. William sighed softly. Again. I chased the ball and came back. Dribble. Bounce. 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 The ball slipped again. Again, William said calmly. This continued for the next 20 minutes. Every time I messed up, he just repeated the same word. Again. By the time we moved on to the next drill, sweat was already running down my neck. Footwork, he said. He demonstrated the movement once. It looked easy when he did it. When I tried it, I nearly tripped over myself. William watched quietly. Then he walked over. Stop. I froze. He stepped closer. Much closer than I expected. Your stance is wrong, he said. Before I could react, he reached out and lightly adjusted my shoulders. Keep your balance here. His hands moved to guide my position. Feet like this. For a moment, my brain stopped working properly. William was standing right behind me now. Close enough that I could feel his presence clearly. My shoulders suddenly felt stiff. You're tense, he said. I'm trying not to fall over, I replied nervously. He chuckled softly. Relax. Easy for him to say. He stepped slightly to the side. Again. I tried the movement. Still awkward. Still clumsy. Still nowhere near the smooth control William had. But this time he nodded slightly. Better. We kept going. Running drills. Defense positioning. Passing practice. Every single exercise exposed another weakness in my skills. I missed easy passes. Lost control of the ball. Got my feet tangled during defense drills. At one point I actually slipped and nearly hit the floor. William caught my arm before I fell. Careful, he said. Thanks, I muttered, slightly embarrassed. But instead of mocking me like most people would, William stayed calm the entire time. Every mistake brought the same response. Correction. Instruction. Another chance to try again. After almost an hour, my legs felt like jelly. I leaned forward, resting my hands on my knees while trying to catch my breath. Am I the worst player you've ever trained? I asked between breaths. William crossed his arms. You're definitely near the top of that list. I groaned. But then he added something unexpected. However. I looked up. You're still standing. I blinked. What? Most people would have quit by now, he said. I wiped sweat from my forehead. Well, I told you I was stubborn. William nodded slightly. Yes, you did. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He just looked at me again. That same thoughtful expression from yesterday. But this time it felt different somehow. More focused. More personal. It made me strangely aware of the fact that we were alone in the gym. Just the two of us. He tossed the basketball back to me. One more drill, he said. Defense stance. I groaned quietly but took my position. William walked around me slowly, watching my posture. Lower your center. I adjusted. Your shoulders are too tight. He stepped behind me again. His hand briefly pressed against my back to adjust my position. Relax here. I tried. But my awareness of him standing so close made that difficult. You're thinking too much, he said. Probably. Focus on the movement. I followed his instructions again. This time the movement felt smoother. More balanced. William stepped back and observed for a few seconds. Then he nodded once. Better. I straightened up, breathing heavily. Still terrible though, I said. He shrugged slightly. Terrible can improve. I laughed weakly. That's encouraging. William studied me quietly again. And in that moment, I noticed something. The way he watched me. It wasn't the same look he gave other players during games or practice. This one felt different. More focused. More interested. Almost like he was trying to understand something about me. And for some reason, that realization made my chest feel strangely tight. After that first morning, the private training sessions didn't stop. Every day at 6 in the morning, I showed up at the gym. And every day, William was already there waiting. The training never got easier. If anything, it became harder. Running drills across the court until my lungs burned. Ball control exercises that left my hands sore. Defense positioning that forced my legs to shake from exhaustion. And every single time I made a mistake, which was a lot, William corrected me immediately. Again. Lower. Focus. Balance. Sometimes he demonstrated the movement himself, making it look effortless. Other times he stood right beside me, adjusting my stance or pointing out exactly where I was going wrong. Slowly, very slowly, I started improving. Not enough to call myself good, but enough that the ball didn't escape my hands every few seconds anymore. Enough that I could keep up with some drills without completely embarrassing myself. And eventually, something changed. William brought me to a regular team practice. That was the first time I met the rest of the players. The gym was loud that evening. Basketballs bouncing. Players shouting instructions. Shoes squeaking across the court. It felt completely different from the quiet mornings I had gotten used to. The moment I stepped onto the court, I felt eyes turning toward me. Some curious. Some confused. Some clearly doubtful. One of the players walked over while William was talking with another teammate. He looked me up and down. "You're the new guy?" he asked. "Something like that," I replied awkwardly. He smirked slightly. "I've seen you practicing with William in the mornings." My stomach tightened a little. "Yeah." The guy crossed his arms. "You know he doesn't normally train people like this." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "He barely has time for most of us," the player said. "But lately he's been spending hours with you." That information made me pause. I hadn't thought about it that way before. To me, it just felt like intense training. But hearing someone else say it like that made the situation sound different. Another teammate joined the conversation. He leaned slightly closer and lowered his voice. "Honestly," he said quietly, "I'm surprised." "Why?" I asked. He shrugged. "William's pretty selective about who he gives attention to." The first guy smirked again. "Yeah, and he definitely notices certain people more than others." I frowned. "I don't follow." The second teammate glanced briefly toward William across the court. Then he looked back at me. "You really don't know?" "Know what?" He hesitated for a second before speaking again. "Well, some people think William might be into guys." The sentence hit me like a small shock. "What?" He shrugged again. "No one knows for sure," he said. "But the rumors have been around for a while." The first player laughed quietly. "And lately he's been spending a lot of private time training you." I felt my face getting warm. "That's not what this is," I said quickly. Both of them raised their hands like they weren't trying to argue. "Relax," one of them said. "We're just saying what people talk about." Then they walked away to rejoin practice. But their words stayed stuck in my head. William might be into guys. I had never thought about him that way before. Not once. To me, he had always just been the talented captain. The skilled player everyone respected. But now, suddenly, my brain started replaying moments from our training sessions. The way he sometimes stood close behind me when correcting my posture. The way his eyes stayed on me longer than I expected. The way he always seemed to notice when I was struggling. And something else. Whenever other players criticized my mistakes during practice, William shut them down immediately. "Focus on your own game," he would say firmly. Or sometimes just a single look from him was enough to make them stop talking. At first I thought that was just leadership. But now I wasn't so sure. The more I thought about it, the more I noticed things I hadn't paid attention to before. The intense eye contact when he explained something. The quiet patience he had with me that he didn't always show others. And the fact that even after team practice ended, he often stayed behind. With me. One evening after a long training session, the gym slowly emptied out. Players grabbed their bags and left one by one. The loud energy faded until the building became quiet again. Soon it was just William and me. Just like the early morning sessions. I sat on the bench near the court, drinking water and trying to catch my breath. William walked over and sat down beside me. Neither of us spoke for a moment. The silence felt different tonight. He leaned forward slightly, resting his arms on his knees. "You did better today," he said. "Barely," I replied. He shook his head slightly. "You're improving." I looked down at the floor. Slowly. That's still progress. For a few seconds we just sat there listening to the quiet hum of the gym lights above us. Then William spoke again. "Why do you want this so badly?" he asked. I looked up. "What do you mean?" "Basketball," he said. His eyes were steady on mine now. "You push yourself harder than most beginners I've seen." I thought about the question for a moment. Then I answered honestly. Because I spent most of my life watching from the sidelines. William didn't interrupt. "I got used to people telling me I wasn't good enough," I continued. My voice was quieter now. "But I guess I just wanted one chance to prove them wrong." William watched me carefully. Something about his expression softened slightly. For a moment, the conversation didn't feel like a coach talking to a player anymore. It felt more personal somehow. And sitting there beside him in the quiet gym, I suddenly became very aware of something. I wasn't just curious about William anymore. I was starting to wonder about my own feelings too. The gym was quiet. Not the peaceful quiet of an early morning practice, but the kind that comes after a long day, when all the noise fades and only the soft hum of the lights remains. William and I were still sitting on the bench near the court. Everyone else had already left. My water bottle rested loosely in my hands while I stared down at the wooden floor. A few minutes earlier, I had told him why basketball mattered so much to me. Why I kept trying even when most people believed I was wasting my time. William hadn't interrupted. He had just listened. Now the silence stretched between us again. Then he spoke. "I know what that feels like." I looked up. "What?" He leaned forward slightly, his elbows resting on his knees as he stared out at the empty court. "Being the guy nobody expects anything from," he said calmly. That surprised me. I studied his face for a moment. "You," I said. William glanced at me briefly. "You sound skeptical." "Because it doesn't make sense," I admitted. "You're the captain of the best team in the city." That didn't happen overnight. I waited. For the first time since I had known him, William seemed reflective. Like he was looking back at something far away. "When I was younger," he said slowly, "I wasn't that impressive either." I blinked. "Seriously?" He nodded once. "Not terrible," he added. "But not someone people paid attention to." That was hard to imagine. William had always seemed so confident. So controlled. Like the court belonged to him. "I tried joining teams," he continued. "But most coaches already had their favorites." His voice stayed calm, but there was a hint of something deeper underneath. They didn't see much potential in me. "So what changed?" I asked quietly. William leaned back slightly on the bench. "Someone gave me a chance." The way he said those words carried weight. "What kind of chance?" I asked. "A coach," he explained. "One who didn't care about reputation or popularity." William paused briefly. He saw that I worked harder than most players. I nodded slowly. "That sounds familiar." A small smile appeared on William's face. "Exactly." He looked back at the court. He pushed me harder than anyone else ever had. His eyes moved slightly across the empty gym floor. "At first I hated it," he admitted. I laughed quietly. "I know the feeling." "But eventually," he continued, "I realized something." "What?" "He wasn't pushing me because I was talented." William turned his head slightly toward me. "He was pushing me because I refused to quit." For a moment neither of us spoke. I understood that feeling better than anyone. William exhaled slowly. "That coach changed everything for me." "And now you're doing the same thing?" I asked. His eyes held mine for a moment. "Yes." The answer came simply, but I sensed there was more behind it. Something he hadn't said yet. I tilted my head slightly. But you could have picked anyone, I said. There are better players than me. William didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied my face again. That same thoughtful look I had noticed so many times before. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. I didn't choose you randomly. I blinked. You didn't. He shook his head. I noticed you long before you ever came to talk to me. My eyebrows pulled together. When? Months ago, he said. My mind immediately jumped to the park. The court near your apartment. I guessed. William nodded. I saw you there almost every night. A strange warmth spread through my chest. You were watching me practice? I asked. Sometimes. The calm honesty in his voice made it sound completely normal. I'd pass by after my own training, he explained. And you were always there. Dribbling. Shooting. Missing. Trying again. I rubbed the back of my neck awkwardly. So you saw all the bad shots. William chuckled softly. Yes. I groaned. Great. But that wasn't the part that caught my attention, he said. I looked at him again. What was? William leaned slightly closer. The fact that you kept coming back. His voice was quiet but steady. Night after night, he continued. Even when nobody was watching. Something in my chest shifted. You didn't stop, he said. Most people would have. I didn't know how to respond. William studied my expression for a moment before speaking again. You're the most stubborn person I've ever seen. My lips parted slightly. And I like that about you. For a moment my heart forgot how to beat properly. The words weren't dramatic. They weren't loud or overly emotional. But the way he said them made them feel important. Real. I suddenly became very aware of how close we were sitting on that bench. The quiet gym around us. The soft echo of distant footsteps somewhere in the building. You like that about me? I repeated quietly. William didn't look away. Yes. Something about the way his eyes held mine made my chest feel tight. For the first time since I had met him, this didn't feel like a coach talking to a player. It felt like something else. Something deeper. And sitting there in the empty gym, with his steady gaze locked on mine, I felt my heart start racing in a way that had nothing to do with basketball. A few weeks after my training with William began, the atmosphere around the team changed. Practices became louder, more intense, more serious. Everyone seemed more focused than before. That's when I learned why. The city championship tournament was coming. It was the biggest local competition of the year. The kind of event where scouts sometimes appeared, where reputations were built, and where every team wanted to prove they were the best. For Williams' team, expectations were high. They had won several major games already that season. People expected them to reach the final, maybe even win the entire tournament. And suddenly, I was part of that environment. Well, sort of. I wasn't on the main lineup. Not even close. But for the first time, William added my name to the official team roster. Which meant one important thing. I could sit on the bench during games. It might not sound like much, but for someone who had spent his entire life watching from the sidelines, it meant everything. Still, not everyone on the team was happy about it. During practice, I noticed the look some players gave me. Doubtful. Annoyed. One of them muttered under his breath after I missed a pass. Why is he even here? Another said quietly to someone else, William's wasting time. The words stung, even if they weren't said directly to my face. But every time something like that happened, William shut it down immediately. Focus on your own performance, he would say firmly. Or sometimes he would just look at them. And that look alone was enough to end the conversation. It made something clear. William believed in me, even when nobody else did. And that only pushed me harder. Every morning we still trained before sunrise. Every evening I stayed late after practice, running extra drills, practicing ball control, working on defense positioning again and again until my legs trembled. Some nights I could barely walk home, but I didn't stop, because the tournament was getting closer. And the pressure kept building. The team practices grew more aggressive. Scrimmages became more competitive. Everyone wanted to prove they deserved their place on the court. Meanwhile, I was just hoping I wouldn't embarrass myself if I ever got the chance to play. One evening, after another exhausting practice, the gym slowly emptied. Just like it often did. Players grabbed their bags and headed out. Eventually, only William and I remained on the court. I was practicing free throws while he watched from near the sideline. My first shot missed. The second one barely hit the rim. The third bounced awkwardly off the backboard. I groaned and rubbed my face. "Great timing," I muttered. William walked over. "You're overthinking," he said. "I'm about to sit on the bench in the biggest tournament of the year," I replied. "Of course I'm overthinking." He stopped in front of me. "You're not there to be perfect," he said calmly. I looked at him. "Then why am I there?" William picked up the basketball and bounced it once. The sound echoed through the empty gym. Then he handed the ball back to me. "Because you earned your place." I wasn't sure if I believed that yet. Maybe he noticed. Because his expression softened slightly. "Listen," he said. His voice was steady. Serious. "Talent isn't everything." I waited. He held my gaze for a moment before finishing the sentence. "Courage matters more." The words hung in the quiet gym. And for some reason, hearing them from him made the pressure in my chest feel a little lighter. The night of the tournament felt unreal. The gym was completely different from the quiet place I had trained in for weeks. Bright lights flooded the court. The stands were packed with people. Voices echoed everywhere. Cheering, shouting, reacting to every play. I sat on the bench with the rest of the team, my hands resting on my knees while I tried to control my breathing. This was the city championship. The biggest game I had ever been part of. Even if I was only sitting on the bench. Across the court, the opposing team was warming up. They looked strong, confident, and far more experienced than I was. Meanwhile, my heart felt like it was beating twice as fast as normal. William stood near the sideline, talking to the starting lineup. Calm. Focused. Exactly the way he always looked before a game. When the match started, the energy inside the gym exploded. Sneakers squeaked across the polished floor. The ball bounced rapidly between players. The crowd reacted to every shot, every block, every fast break. Our team played well, but the opposing team kept the score close. I watched everything from the bench, gripping my hands together nervously. Part of me hoped I wouldn't have to play. But another part of me, the part that had practiced every night for years, desperately wanted the chance. Then something unexpected happened. Halfway through the second half, one of our starting players jumped to block a shot. When he landed, he stumbled awkwardly. He grabbed his ankle and dropped to the floor. The referee blew the whistle immediately. The gym filled with concerned voices as our teammates gathered around him. I felt my stomach twist. Injuries were never good. The coach spoke briefly with William near the sideline. Then both of them looked toward the bench. Toward me. My heart skipped. No way. William walked over. The rest of the players were already looking confused. He stopped directly in front of me. "Fred," he said. My throat suddenly felt dry. "Yes. You're going in." For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. "What?" The players around me looked just as shocked. One of them even whispered, "Is he serious?" But William's expression didn't change. "Get ready," he said calmly. My legs felt heavy as I stood up. The noise of the crowd suddenly seemed louder than before. My mind raced with every possible mistake I could make. What if I lost the ball? What if I missed an easy pass? What if everyone in the gym realized I didn't belong here? But then I looked at William. He met my eyes for a moment. No doubt. No hesitation. Just calm confidence. And suddenly, I remembered something he had said to me before. Talent isn't everything. Courage matters more. The referee signaled the substitution. I stepped onto the court. The moment my shoes touched the polished floor, a strange mix of fear and excitement rushed through my body. The game resumed quickly. The first time the ball came toward me, my heart jumped into my throat. But I remembered the drills, the hours of practice, the early mornings, the corrections, lower stance, control the ball, focus. I dribbled carefully and passed the ball to a teammate. Nothing spectacular. But I didn't mess up either. A few minutes passed. Then another. Slowly, my body began to relax. I moved more confidently, defended my position, followed the strategies William had drilled into me again and again. The score remained incredibly close. Only seconds were left on the clock. We were tied. The ball came to me again near the edge of the court. For a split second, panic flashed through my mind. But then I saw something. One of our teammates cutting toward the basket. A move William had practiced with us dozens of times. Without hesitating, I passed the ball. Perfect timing. Perfect angle. My teammate caught it mid-run and jumped. The ball left his hands. Swish. The net snapped as the ball dropped cleanly through the hoop. The buzzer sounded almost immediately after. For half a second, the entire gym froze. Then the crowd exploded. Our team had won. Players rushed onto the court, cheering and celebrating. Someone grabbed me from behind and pulled me into the celebration. I stood there in shock, barely able to process what had just happened. I hadn't made the winning shot. But that pass, that moment, it mattered. Across the court, William was watching me. And for the first time since I had met him, I felt something incredible. I didn't feel like the worst player anymore. For the first time in my life, I felt like I actually belonged. The night air outside the gym was cool and quiet. The cheering inside had faded, leaving only the distant hum of cars on the street. William and I stepped outside together, the glow of the streetlights casting long shadows on the pavement. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of emotions inside me. My hands were still slightly trembling. Not from exhaustion, but from everything that had happened tonight. "Fred," William said softly, turning to face me. I looked up. I just wanted to say thank you," I said, my voice catching a little. "For everything. The training, the patience, believing in me when no one else did." William studied me quietly for a moment, then his expression softened. "I didn't just train you because of basketball," he said. I paused, the weight of his words settling in. "What do you mean?" I asked. He smiled faintly, a warmth in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. "I saw something in you, something beyond skill or talent," he said. "Your determination, your stubbornness, the way you never gave up. I wanted to be part of that. To help you grow, not just as a player, but as someone who could truly believe in himself." For the first time, I understood. It wasn't just basketball. It had never been just basketball. We stood there in silence for a moment. The city around us hushed, and I realized how close we had become. Not coach and player. Not mentor and student. Something deeper. Something real. My chest tightened as I looked at him. "William." I started, but the words felt unnecessary. He already knew. I already knew. A small smile passed between us, quiet and unspoken, but it said everything that words could not. I felt a strange calm, a sense of belonging that had nothing to do with the court, the ball, or the game. And as we walked away from the gym together, I reflected on everything that had led me here. Years of being mocked. Years of being ignored. Hours of practice alone under dim streetlights. Endless self-doubt. I had joined a basketball team hoping to become a player. But what I found was something I never expected. A bond that went beyond drills and victories. A connection that was real. That mattered. Something, and someone, worth more than any trophy. And for the first time, I felt like I belonged.